I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
This means something.
I am Locutus of Borg.
I must not fear, and fear is the mind killer.
Get away from her, you
Nerd! Nerd!
I'm Matt Kressel.
And I'm David Mercurio Rivera.
And
this is Nerdcons.
Hello and welcome to the Nerd Count podcast. I'm Matt Kressel and I'm here with
Mercurio de Rivera.
And we're here live at Readercon. Well, technically not live because by the time you hear this, it will be probably days or weeks later.
That's true. Yeah, we're here in Quincy, Massachusetts. What hotel is this again, Matt?
It's the Marriott Quincy.
The Marriott Quincy Hotel, yes. And there's a very nice turnout for the convention. Very active. Thursday night there's a lot of hubbub, a lot of socializing, which is unusual for a Thursday night at a 4-day con. Normally things get more active Friday, Saturday, but it's a good sign that things were so active. Lots of socializing at the bar last night, which was a lot of fun. So we're going to be able to talk to some folks today and get their just little snippets, little reactions to their experiences at Readercon and how it's impacted their careers, why they're here. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we thought it'd be a nice opportunity to talk to a bunch of writers. So yeah, there's a lot of background noise because we're here in the courtyard, but we thought it added some nice ambiance to get a feeling of actually being here at a con. So we'll be back in a couple minutes with our first guest. So see you soon. All right, we're here with Jeffrey Ford.
Hello, it's Jeff Ford. I'm a writer, fiction. I write stories and novels. I've been at it for like a long time, too long to remember when I started. And, I'm here at the Readercon having a good time. So, you might have seen some of my books around, The Shadow Year, Girl in the Glass, Mrs. Sharbook, some of the story collections, Big Dark Hole, and Natural History of Hell, and another novel, Ahab's Return. And so,
You're one of my favorite short story writers. I really admire. You're also super prolific. Like you seem to, every time I see out there, you always have another story coming out or multiple stories coming out.
I was kind of prolific when I was younger. Now I'm a prolific starer out the window.
One of my favorite things to do at these cons is I always look out for a Jeff Ford reading, because I always appreciate the fact that you read a complete story.
I always love to do that. That's the only, if they just let me do that here, that's all I really want to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the other stuff is great, and I go to the panels. I can't be on panels because I can never think of anything witty to say during the panel. Like 2 weeks later, I'll be like, hey, I should have said that,
You could
but
just nail the panel.
I can't think of it, yeah, so
what's your history with Readercon? When was the first time you came
Oh,
to
man,
these?
a long time ago. It was quite a while ago. I went to it when it was in a different place, before it's been in the walled city now here at the Marriott, Yeah. It was in another bar, and it was actually in Boston, I think, at the time. And what was great was the bartender at that place was a Yankee fan. And that's what made Lynn want to come, because she'd come and talk about the Yankees with the bartender. You know what I mean?
Talking Yankee baseball in Boston.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to come by, Yeah, so that's how far back it's been for me. But I still see some of the same characters here. And I'm getting old, so I don't know as many people, But it's still fun. I'm having a good time this weekend,
You got any good stories you could tell us about Readercon's past?
Readercon.
Something you can say publicly,
Or you could shame people. No, I'm just kidding.
Let's see, Readercon. I don't know. I'm thinking about. Not really, because my memory's kind of shot, but it's a lot easier getting high now. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a legal state.
It's a lot less of a sweat.
Right, right.
I used to be out in the parking lot out here, like by the hedges.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's easier. And you know, I can't really think of any good stories.
Have you met any other writers you admire here, like over the years?
Oh, through the years, yeah. I mean, there's people I admire that are here today. You guys, Michael Sisko is going to be here. A lot of times John Langan comes, a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Paul Tremblay comes sometimes, and you know, other people used to come in the past. I saw a bunch of Jim Morrow today, and I saw a bunch of people, you know. I've seen a lot of people here in the past, you know. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. That part's fun. I like this one because it's kind of laid back, you know. It's not a huge production. I can't do like Worldcon because I find myself like wandering in like these giant fascistic halls trying to find somewhere. I remember being in Philly once and like totally lost.
Yeah.
But this one's good. I go to World Fantasy too a lot
World Fantasy's great.
that's usually laid back too, you know. Yeah.
So
I don't know. I don't have any. Do you have any other questions?
no, we just wanted to get a sense of how's your con going so far?
Yeah.
It's going good. I did a reading. I got the coffee crotch this afternoon, right? This evening at 7.
Okay.
We're going to sign some books later at 10, if I'm still awake. And then tomorrow I'm on the loose, man. I got nothing to do.
All right.
Sunday I'm going to do a panel for my old friend Rick Bowes, who passed away.
Yeah, I'll be in attendance.
Yeah,
for that.
yeah. All right.
All right. Well, thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, guys. It's great talking to you.
All right, thanks. All right, we're here with A.T. Greenblatt at Readercon, so welcome.
Hey.
So tell us about yourself. Who are you?
I am A.T. Greenblatt. I am a short story writer mostly. I've been actually coming to Readercon, I think, for the last 10, 12 years. It was like one of my first cons. But basically I've had short stories published in Uncanny, Clarksville, Tour.com, all the good places. Beneath the Skies has stuff up for major awards, even won one once, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I just like...
You know what I love? I love the fact that we used to hang out and go out to dinner, and we were friends before you really were well published.
Yeah.
It's like we knew way back before you were big.
Yeah.
We knew you back then.
I know, I was talking to Scott Andrews last night. I was like, remember this time like 10 years ago where I had one story published and I was really excited, and I was really excited to be hanging out with all you cool guys.
Now we're all excited to hang out with you. So.
Yeah, thanks.
So tell us, do you have any interesting Readercon stories or even just other convention stories? Anything you want to share?
I'm actually really bad at like all the cons are blurred together now at this point, but it's always just a lot of fun just to meet people and new people and old people, and it's always wild to, especially if you've been talking to someone online for like ages and you see them in person, you're like, wait, I know you. We actually were friends. So I've had a couple of those where you're deep in conversation with someone for 20 minutes and then you realize you've been online friends for the last 2 years.
Or you've read their work.
Yeah, exactly. I've been exchanging tweets. So that's always a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's always fun. It's always interesting at cons when you hang out with somebody and then you find out after the fact there's somebody big.
Right,
like
yeah.
You're talking to an important editor or another writer that, that maybe it turns out it's somebody big and you're not maybe not aware of. But it's so you've been coming to Readercon for 12 years or so?
Something like that, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's,
what are your favorite parts of the con?
Honestly, I love like just this now. Like honestly, just hanging out with people on the porch, talking to new people. I always meet new people, and it's just geeky, and everyone geeks out about stories. And
I think this hotel in particular has a great setup at the courtyard because everyone just sort of wanders out here at some point in the day, and everyone can just hang out and talk and chat.
Yeah, and I have to say Boston has some great breweries, so that's always fun.
That is true. We stocked up on Trillium yesterday, so we're stocked for the...
I was introduced to Trillium through this con. I'm like, it's one of my favorite breweries now.
Yeah. So, did you have a reading yet, or your reading is coming up?
I'm doing all my fancy important author stuff tomorrow. So I have a reading tomorrow. I have a coffee clutch and one more panel with some pretty cool people and about SFF and Wanderlust, which is kind of one of my journey stories are like one of my favorite things ever. So.
And so, what are you reading tomorrow?
So I had a story come out on Reactor.com, or I'm sorry, Reactor, formerly Tour.com, in May. So I'll probably be reading for that. It's called Between Home and the House on Fire. So Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm excited.
Yeah, so check that out online. AT Greenblatt, thank you very much for talking with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Thanks. All right, we're here with AC Wise at Readercon. Welcome.
Thank you, and it is lovely to be here.
So tell us about yourself. Who are you?
I am AC Wise. I am an author and reviewer for Apex and Locust currently. I have 2 novels, 3 short story collections, and soon to be 3 novellas.
Can you tell us the titles of some of them?
I can indeed. So my first novel was Wendy Darling, take on Peter Pan. Then the companion novel to that was Hooked. And I have 2 new novellas coming out this year. Grackle, which should be out in theory in July, which is this month. And Out of the Drowning Deep, which is coming out in September of this year.
Awesome. And then you also read for the World Fantasy Awards, or you read?
I read for the World Fantasy Awards last year, I think. I don't know how time works anymore. It was an amazing experience. I highly recommend it to anybody who get asked to do it. It is a lot. It's intimidating, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So what's your experience with Readercon?
Readercon, I feel like was, I want to say not my first con, but the first con where I felt like I actually engaged with the con. I made the mistake of doing Worldcon for my first con ever, which was great, but hugely intimidating. It felt like there were a million people there. Everybody seemed like they knew each other. I had no idea what I was doing. I spent the entire time pretty much hiding in a corner, terrified to talk to anybody. Yeah. I only convinced myself to go because it was being held in my hometown of Montreal. I literally had my mother drop me off at the convention and then pick me up. I felt like I was back in school. And I maybe talked to one person the entire time because it was terrifying, and then somebody convinced me to come to Readercon. I'm like, oh, this is what it can be like, where it's actually manageable size and friendly people and interesting panels, and I can talk to humans and it's not terrifying. So I have very good feelings about Readercon as what got me going to cons in general.
Do you have any interesting stories of Readercons past or present that you'd like to share?
There's nothing that really stands out other than it's one of my favorite cons. I try to attend every year. Not really a story, but I have a epic quest to get ice cream with A.T. Greenblatt, which stands out in my mind as a fun thing. We just start walking and hope we find something eventually.
Sounds like a very Readercon story.
Any writers you admire or that you wanted to meet and then you actually met?
I mean, I feel like I'm always meeting people that I think I first met you, Matt, at a Readercon. That we'd interacted online and finally got to meet in person at a Readercon, and there's just always cool people here, and it's a lovely place to hang out and get to know people, and it feels like everybody's very welcoming and kind here.
I feel like there's not a lot of stratification here. Even if you're really successful or you're just a beginner, I don't think I think everyone just talks to each other. There's no real
doesn't feel
here. I mean, maybe it's a little cliquey because people know each other, but not to the same that I've seen.
Our first year here, we interacted with Chip Delaney and Jonathan Lethem, and we played Mafia with them.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of that's been my experience at Readercon.
Yeah. It always feels welcoming and open, and people try to invite people into conversations too. I've seen people seem to make the effort of oh, you're sitting by yourself or standing by yourself. Come, sit with us, talk to us, kind of thing. It's got that welcoming vibe to it.
So you have any panels coming up or events that you did this weekend that you're excited about?
I had 2 panels today. I feel like they went well. And I have a reading tomorrow at 3:30?
Okay.
3:30.
What are you going to be reading?
I'm going to be reading from the novella that is supposed to be out this month, which is called Grackle. It's kind of folk-ish horror, road trippy, ghosty kind of thing.
Awesome.
All
right.
It'll be fun.
Well, thank you, ACY.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you both. This was lovely.
Awesome. Thanks. All right, we're here with Scott H. Andrews. Welcome, Scott.
Hello. Cheers.
So tell us about yourself.
Well, should we tell the people out in Radioland what we're drinking?
What are we drinking? We're going through a lot here.
We are drinking Trillium Brewery, sour called Daily Serving. It's a Berliner Weiss with strawberry and blueberry.
And what do you think? How do you like it?
Well, I had a bunch yesterday.
So
it's very good.
So in other words, it's terrible. It is quite good. It's It's fairly sour, but I like it. It's tart.
That's
We
tasty.
did a beer run with Scott yesterday afternoon to kind of inaugurate, to start the con. What better way to start than by rating rating the distillery and coming back with a bunch of cans.
Came back with about 100 pounds of beer.
Yeah.
Indeed, we did.
Literally, like not even exaggeration. So
who are you, Scott? What do you
Who am I? I'm probably best known as the editor and publisher of Beneath Ceaseless Skies magazine, which is an online fantasy magazine of secondary world fantasy set in other worlds or historical paranormal worlds with a focus on the characters and character struggle.
And you've been going for how many years? The magazine's been going for a while, right?
The magazine's been going for 16 years. It launched, announced it at Readercon 2008, and opened for submissions that month. So that was July 2008, and then the first issue was October that year. So it's almost 16 years. 400. Yesterday, issue 411 came out.
411. And do you know how many stories that you've published?
It's about 900.
900, and you also have a podcast.
And the podcast is maybe 375 total episodes at this point.
And you're also a pro market, so you pay pro rates.
8 cents a word.
That's pretty amazing.
Wow. And why did you choose Readercon to announce the launching of the magazine?
Probably because that was... I'd gone to Readercon maybe 3 or 4 times by then, and I'd gone to Capclave some. But Readercon to me seemed the biggest critical mass of short fiction stuff of any con that I at least was going to. And a big part of that was Neil Clark and Clark's World being there. But every year at Readercon there were always panels about magazines and short fiction of the year and that kind of stuff. So to me, it seemed a very natural fit. There were also lots of writers who were the sort of writers who I hoped would submit when I started the magazine. Folks like Yuna Ali as attendees there, and so that was part of it as well.
So do you have any interesting stories about Readercon, past or present?
I have many.
Can you share one?
Sure.
No, you can't share any of those
I
stories.
can share.
The mic's off, Scott. Go ahead.
From 2008, I remember very clearly. I don't remember if I had announced BCS online or not yet, but at the con I had a big sheaf of flyers with the beautiful cover art that was the pre-launch cover on the website. And this was back when I was a writer, so I had submitted to Clark's World a number of times and been rejected by Neil. And I had spoken to him at Readercon several times before that. I don't remember what about. But I remember at Readercon in 2008, so all I had was the flyers announcing the magazine, and nobody knew me from a hole in the ground. I had no publishing experience that anybody knew about. I had edited Lit Mag in college, but was completely a new name on the editing part of our scene. Yet I remember vividly, Neil talked to me for over an hour. And this was outside of one of those big panel rooms, like the big long panel rooms that the hall outside had that glass wall that faced north toward the parking lot, and those big panel rooms. And then the dealer's room was in that line too. So it was outside of one of those rooms, and I remember the big heavy door and that carpet that's the Marriott carpet design pattern that this Marriott, of course, has also. And he just talked and shared things with me and answered my questions for over an hour when I was a nobody, which is totally the kind of generous and wise and interesting person that he is.
Wow, you won't say a word to me.
And a thing that came out of that was a few magazines were doing podcasting along with text back then. Escape Pod had started all podcasts. They had started a couple years before, but Clark's World, I think they called it the occasional podcast at that point. And it had not occurred to me to do audio with BCS. But I'm a musician. I have a background in digital audio. I know digital audio reasonably well, especially in mono spoken word. I can do that great. So as soon as he said it, I was like, oh shit, I need to do a podcast as part of the magazine. So the impetus to do that came from that conversation with Neil, and I knew I could do it. I knew I could do it well, and I think it's gone well, and I'm very happy with it. But it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gotten the idea, or the idea for the possibility.
Yeah.
In that conversation with Neil.
Well, I'm sensing a little bit of a theme here with some of our other short interviews, in that people are saying that, Readercon, they didn't know anybody, and they were able to go up and talk to these, very successful authors or editors or whatnot, and that's the kind of vibe here where it's like there's no stratification. Is that your vibe? Is that your take of?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a very quiet and insular person by nature, so for me it's always hard.
Here comes a bus, a tour bus coming.
Busload of people coming.
Busload of drunk wedding folks.
Yes.
Wedding party.
They're drinking light beer from Miller, by the way.
Yeah.
So we could go start
they
the
know their
less
beer
filling,
then.
tastes great fight in the bar.
Yeah.
I had talked to Neil before, and I don't remember what it was about, but he has those little cards that he gives when people say you rejected me.
Yeah.
So he had those back then, and that may have been the seed of it. And it may have been just general short fiction stuff. I bought from his bookstore back then.
Yeah.
Y'all remember he had an online bookstore?
Yeah, Clarksville
Books.
Yeah,
and that's where I got all of my short fiction magazines. Like, he would have copies of Inner Zone and Subterranean magazine back when it was paper, and Paradox that our friend Chris Savasco used to publish. Yeah, so for years I bought my magazines there when I was a writer and trying to sample all the different magazines, because of course as a writer you should read the magazines you want to submit to, right?
Yeah.
But back in that day it was paper, so you had to buy a crate of magazines every month from somebody like Neil.
Yeah.
You couldn't just get it online. So yeah, that was part of it.
Awesome.
And yeah, the authors I've met, I met Jim Morrow when he was a teacher at my Odyssey, but I also see him some at Readercon, and I bought from him several times over the years. Yeah, it's hard to think of them on the spot.
Yeah.
But many writers of you all's level, the dozen pro sales and more sort of level, Yoon-Ha Lee, Seth Dickinson, Genevieve Valentine, who I bought from a couple times many years ago. But the short fiction discussions and panels, I think, were always a big part of that. And the great chat I had with Neil and many others through the following years, that first one sticks in my mind. But also being on panels with folks like Neil and Ellen Datlow and Sean Wallace, Sheila Williams, other editors, and being able to literally sit at the table with them and talk about short fiction things and particular authors and particular stories. Short fiction of the year, was and is a common panel topic, on which editors always say, well, I've been so busy editing the stuff I edit, that's all I read. Yeah. So I can tell you what were the best things I edited this year. And then the next editor at the table says, well, I've only read my stuff, right? So you hopefully get a whole panel.
I love the panels at Readercon because they tend to just, they're very stimulating, they're intellectual, they're very thoughtful. And I'd love to hear about craft, the writers, and their approaches to writing. So I love the panels myself.
Yeah. Well, Scott, thanks very much for sitting down with us here at Readercon. Really, you're one of my closest friends, and I appreciate the time that you're taking to sit down with us.
Thanks, Scott.
Cheers, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, we're here with Mike Allen. Mike, welcome.
So glad for you to ask me to do this.
So it's been a while since I've seen you, so can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am the editor and publisher of Mythic Delirium Books, which is a micropress based in Roanoke, Virginia. And I'm also a writer myself of mostly horror, though I also delve into other genres. Once upon a time, I cranked out lots and lots of poetry. I'm much more focused now on short stories and even novels.
That's awesome. Before we go on, I want to point out that Mike is wearing the coolest hat I've ever seen.
That is true. You always have great hats.
Top hat with purple lines across and a giant silver spider on the front of it. And other
and like sort of steampunkish gears and buttons and very cool. Did you make that?
So I did not make it. Anita made this.
Okay.
Interestingly, the original version of this hat was a gift to me from Amal El Motar.
Okay.
But that version of the hat, alas, is lost, and Anita recreated it better. And everything that is on this hat is related to something that I have written or something that I have published.
That's amazing.
Like the Mythic Delirium logo, I think, is on the back of it.
Yeah,
and there's
and then
my
your,
book covers.
Collections, yeah.
And the buttons refer to my short story, The Button Bin, that was a Nebula finalist back in what feels like the Dark Ages now.
Yeah.
And so what you can't see is I have the yellow sign on the top of my head.
Okay.
So little Robert W. Chambers going on as well.
So how's Readercon been so far, and what's your experience with this con?
So I have been coming to Readercon since 2004, if I remember rightly, which was when I was the president of the Science Fiction Poetry Association. And the nuts and bolts of that connection was that I believe it was Sean Wallace with Prime Books who told me that if you want to go to a science fiction convention that's going to buy poetry, you should set up a table at Readercon. And he turned out to be absolutely right. And so for many years, I and other volunteers ran a table for the Science Fiction Poetry Association. And then I pulled back from the association a bit. I'm no longer really a volunteer there, but I began to concentrate more on promoting Mythic Delirium, which grew from a biannual zine that published poetry to what it is now, a press that publishes short story collections and novels by authors like C.S.E. Cooney and Theodora Goss, Yukimi Ogawa, Barbara Krasnoff, and some of my own work. It's an outlet for my own work as well. And so I began with Anita, my wife, running a Mythic Delirium table here. And in the meantime, I've also been a panelist, for this entire span for the years that we have made it, and have premiered a lot of books here and been very satisfied with that result. And so once upon a time, there used to be a thing at Readercon, they don't do it anymore, called the Kirk Poland Bad Prose Competition. Yeah. And I was a consistent I was a consistent competitor in that, which was just a lot of fun. It was very funny.
When I've been coming to Readercon, maybe I started 1 year before you, 2003.
Okay.
And to me, you are the face of Readercon. I feel like if I don't see Mike Allen somewhere at Readercon, then it's not real. Then I didn't actually go to Readercon. Like, you are, like, I've seen you now. Yes, this was a real Readercon.
Are you hosting a party this year?
I am not. Actually, I didn't look into whether that was a thing they would allow.
Yeah, they probably don't.
But certainly I've held some bangers in the past here. So obviously the microphone didn't pick up the range of expressions as you were saying that I'm the Readercon might be very surprised to hear that, but I'm super flattered. And I'm glad. It's part of why I keep wearing the hat, because I know people remember the hat.
Yes.
Whether they know or remember anything else about me, they know the hat.
So what are you working on now? Any projects we should be aware of?
Sure. So I am actually kind of soft premiering at this Readercon my new collection of short stories, Slow Burn, which hilariously I'm holding up to the microphone.
Yeah, so you can, all of you listeners at home can see this. It's beautiful. It's a figure made out of flames, a female figure with flames, and there are all sorts of screaming faces in the flames, and she is dropping buttons into her hand, I think, and the people look like they're suffering. It's really quite beautiful, the art, actually.
Thank you. Well, no, it's not exactly a happy party, no.
Yeah.
So I mentioned earlier my short story, The Button Bin. The main novella that's included in Slow Burn, which is called The Comforter, is a direct sequel to that story, and so that's why the buttons end up making it onto the cover of my book, as well as the hat I'm wearing. All sorts of button themes here. But this is a collection that contains some of my newest short stories and some new uncollected poems and some older uncollected poems that I brought in to kind of put them in front of fresh eyes. And there's also some older short stories, many of them collaborations that I've done with writers like Ian Watson or Christina Sung, the poet, that have gone unseen for many years, and they're also in this book. So there's a lot of old and new in it, and I'm happy to be inflicting it on people.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Mike, for sitting down with us here at Readercon. Check out Mike Allen's work online. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Thanks. All right, we're here with A.T. Sayre. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you?
Yeah, who the hell are you?
I grew up in a life of pain. No, I grew up in New Hampshire, I've been living in Brooklyn for about 10 years now, writing. My first short story collection, Signals in the Static, came out in May, and it's gonna sell out at Readercon.
You're a frequent contributor to
Analog Magazine, yeah. I've been in Analog Magazine 5 times. The most recent one in the current July-August issue of Analog, where my first novel, The Last Days of Good People, is published in Analog.
And it's amazing. So they're actually serializing your novel.
It's not serialized. It's the entire
novel.
The whole novel. It's the entire novel in one issue.
Oh wow!
Because it's right on the cusp of the novel's 55,000 words, so it's right on the cusp of needing to cut it in half. So instead of serializing it over two issues or so, they decided it's going to take up like half the fiction content of the issue instead.
That's incredible.
So
that's pretty great.
Yeah, I know. It's really kind of surprising. I sent it to him, and even I'm shocked that he actually took it. But it's also going to be out as an audiobook from Dreamscape in February, tentatively, and an ebook from Jabberwocky is coming out at the same time. Of an extended 60,000 word version.
Okay, so the extra 5,000 words.
Extra 5,000 words.
So how are you enjoying Readercon?
I always enjoy Readercon.
What's your history with this con?
This is the third time I've come to Readercon. I wasn't actually intending to come to Readercon until fairly late, because at some point it's like, well, you're publishing so many things right now, you kind of have to go to Readercon, is what people were telling me. So I was like, okay, fair enough. So I came to Readercon. I did a reading earlier. I'm doing another reading in about an hour. And I like Readercon, but like most conventions I go to, I'm absolutely miserable about literally not going to anything and just loitering on the porch the entire time.
Yeah, I think there's a certain draw to this porch.
Yeah, there is.
It's just like everybody's just kind of hanging out and talking and chatting, and there's a nice vibe out here. It's very relaxed and easygoing.
Yeah, I mean, I seem to do this not just at Readercon, but at every convention. When I went to Chicago Worldcon, I did the same thing.
Yeah.
That little area right out in front of the hotel, which wasn't exactly conducive to hanging out, but I did it anyways. And then at the DC Con the year before, there was the back porch, which was really nice, and I literally had my own chair back there. I was back there so much. And people would just come and go, and I would just sit there the entire day, because I literally went, I think the entire Chicago Worldcon, I went to like 2 things. And the DC Worldcon, I think I went to 3. And I'm committed that I will go to at least 2 things this year.
Okay.
I'm committed to 2 things. I'm not sure I'm going to make it. But
well, wait, what's the second thing? It's Readercon and something else, or 2 other things?
Oh, you mean 2 panels? Or 2?
I will go to at least 2 panels or readings.
Oh, got it.
Through Readercon.
You don't know which ones they are yet?
More than likely they're going to be readings. I don't really go for panels as much. I like readings, because I enjoy watching readers read their own material. Mm-hmm. I enjoy seeing that.
Yeah, me too. That's my favorite. I love when somebody reads a full short story, actually.
Yeah, because you get to see how much, because they care about their story. And even if they don't have like a professional delivery to it and they're just reading it, it means a lot to see them read it. And I enjoy watching a writer who cares about their work read their own stuff to me.
And what about your readings? What have you read? What are you reading?
At Readercon, I started out, I read the first section of one of the short stories in my collection, called The Ambassadors. That's one I just read. It was originally published in Aurealis magazine year before last, and just the first section of the first 1,400 words of it. And in the next one, I'm going to be reading the first section of a story called Giant, which was published in Utopia magazine, actually another one 2 years ago. Okay. And I've been reading the first section of that because, again, I only have a 7-minute window to read it.
Oh, okay. So it's group reading.
Yeah, it's group reading.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that I considered, actually, should I sign up to see if I can get my own individual 30-minute reading slot? And I was like, nobody's going to go to that. I might not show up for that. So I didn't have this. I have an ego and I'm arrogant, but I'm not quite arrogant enough to sign up for my own individual reading at Readercon just yet.
So where can we find you online if someone wants to find more of your work?
I have a page on I have a professional website that I use for freelance work, but I have a page on there that lists all my bibliography. It's atsayre.com/fiction.
So SAYRE.
SAYRE, yes. And it lists all my publications, links to them, or to the Goodreads page. And as far as I know, it's completely up to date and there's no dead links in it.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're here with Julie C. Day. Julie, welcome.
Hi.
So tell us about yourself. Who are you? Who's Julie?
I'm someone who is unwilling to commit to any one track.
Okay.
So my website that I had made years ago when I was a baby writer is called Still Winging It. Mm-hmm. And I think that's actually fits my personality a lot. So I write, I'm an editor, and now I have a small press. So it's all of those things. So I think of myself primarily as an author. However, I'm at Readercon to promote my latest anthology that I'm putting together, actually.
I feel like a lot of people at Readercon in particular have multiple avenues of creativity. Like people are just like, I'm not just a writer, I'm a poet, I'm a musician, I'm an editor, you know?
Yeah, and actually I think editing is sort of a creative process if you do it right, honestly. Mm-hmm. Not that we...
Of course, yeah.
But... I do think if you're a creative person and you put all your energy into something where you're also trying to have professional aspirations, it doesn't give you the freedom to just play as much as you like, and it's really good to have other things that feed you rather than make you feel like you haven't hit a goal, because the goal is really, when you're creating, to play. That's all it is.
Well, we met online, Julie. I think we were both Inner Zone alumni.
Yes, we are.
That's how we connected.
Yeah, Andy Cox emailed me recently. He was the long-term editor of Inner Zone and TTA Press in general, and he's now going to start putting out novellas.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, no, he was like, you got any novellas? And I'm like, no, not done yet. I do have one I'm working on, but I don't like writing to a market, so I'd rather just create it and then find a home.
Write and then see where you want to send it after. Yeah.
He puts out a great product, so I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Can I tell you an Andy story?
Yes.
Which is when my first collection came out, because he was like the first editor who really loved my work, and so when my collection was coming out, he was like, I want to help you promote the book, and the timing was getting kind of weird, so he said, I'm going to give you a full-page ad, I'll put it together for you, and I'll put it in Inner Zone. And it wasn't like a money thing, I didn't pay, it was like purely because he wanted to help me.
That's amazing. He's that kind of guy. He definitely helped my career as well.
Yeah.
They pulled one of my stories out of the slush pile, and then took more and more of my work, and he was very good about promoting it. So.
Yeah. I think we've had similar experiences with him. He was one of the first people to publish me. Yeah.
So how long have you been going to Readercon for?
On and off, probably maybe 7 years, 10 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm late to cons. I came to cons after I started publishing. So, but Readercon is one where I kind of, a lot of different friends might end up. That are maybe some from Canada, some from New York. People, and it's also a place where if I can show up and then I can quietly go and replenish myself and maybe visit some friends who aren't at the con and then come back again. That's a move I have sometimes too.
Do you have a particular favorite thing about Readercon that you enjoy?
I think, honestly, it's the people who come, because I think the people who come are coming because they're looking to spend time with their community more than it's the. I mean, sure, we're all here to maybe a lot of us to promote something or talk about something, but the conversations aren't usually centered around that at all.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, and
that's a good point. I it's true because people aren't like, look at my work. I mean, yeah, sure, like that's true. Obviously that's part of it.
Nobody does that.
Yeah. Let me do
as
this.
He's holding up, as we're
I'm going to hold up
our
a flyer for
books.
my latest anthology, which is called Storyteller, a Tanith tribute anthology.
But David and I, in previous episodes, talk about finding your people, right? And Readercon is like all our people, right?
And people are generally. I don't come across as shy as I used to, but at my base, I am shy. I don't think that's unusual.
Yes, I'm the same way. Matt is very extroverted and I'm introverted. And I always thought doing a podcast as a way to force myself to interact more.
I find it strange that you say that I'm extroverted because in my head I was the shyest person in the world as a kid. Like I couldn't call up my friend's house to hang out. I would have to have my mother do it. I couldn't call up to order a pizza on the phone. And I was so shy. But I think people have levels of extroversion. Like I have a certain reserve, and then once I hit that reserve, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to talk to anybody.
Maybe that's it. The amount of buffer you have before you need space. My buffer is pretty small, But which reminds me of a shy story. When I was in 5th grade, I was a very dreamy kid, as you can imagine. Read a lot of books, but I didn't like to speak up in class. And I had a teacher who decided they were trying to make me extroverted by dragging me out and having me try and yell outside.
Oh my, okay.
Didn't go well.
Well, we don't do that here at Readercon.
No. Would you guys want to talk about anything else?
Yes. Why don't you tell us about what you're working on and maybe a project you're working on or something you'd like to promote?
I should promote this, the anthology.
Sure. Tell us about it.
Storyteller is an anthology, is a Tanith tribute anthology. She died. It's going to come out on the 10th anniversary of her passing, which is in May of 2025. She was a foundational author for everyone from C.S.E. Cooney to China Vieilleville to N.K. Jemisin to Martha Wells. Huge swath across all different kinds of subgenres, and yet she's not even known by many people. Of a certain generation, she's known but maybe not understood what her work actually was. She wrote 90 novels, over 300 short stories, really prolific, really a difficult woman in certain ways, which is a great thing to be. That's not derogatory, actually. I wish I could be more like that. But she also wrote gender fluid and queer as part of her stories without trying to make a point decades before anyone else was doing it. She did
pioneer.
She was a pioneer.
Yeah,
and she's a pioneer that's mostly forgotten. And I feel like that is not. It felt like something that needed to be. I wanted to try and make a correction.
Bring it back.
Say like. So on the 10th anniversary, so I reached out to a bunch of authors, and I have this anthology. We have 8 invited authors, including C.S.E. Cooney, Andy Duncan, Theodore Goss, Nisi Shawl, Terry Windling, Martha Wells, Elia Dawn Johnson, and Maya Dean, and then we're having an open call that starts on Tuesday for another set of authors. And they all have to be people who are writing in response to her work or who can explain why this work belongs in a tribute anthology. What about her connected with them?
Yeah.
And so it's meant to be a revival of an author who should not be forgotten.
I think that's a great thing, and I think that were Tanith alive today, she would be very, very happy that you were doing this and very appreciative. And where could listeners find more of your work?
My personal work, my work, you can find it. Well, it's all over the internet. My latest story was out with Sunday Morning Transport in the one of the April issues. If you go to my website, which again is stillwingingit.com, it has the usual listings of everything. And I am also, as like we all do, working on various projects, but it's easier for me not to talk about them too much.
Yes, no, I agree. I know that fully.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Julie.
you.
Appreciate sitting down with us today. Thanks very
Thanks.
much. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Of course. We are here with C.S.E. Cooney. Welcome, Claire. How are you?
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So, you are a person of many talents. I am so enamored by how talented and not only talented, but how friendly you are. You're always just so friendly.
Vivacious attendee at Readercon.
Yeah, and you just so much positive energy. You just radiate positive energy. So anyway, please tell us about yourself. Who are you?
I'm Claire. I write under C.S.E. Cooney. I write big, fat, chonk novels, and then I write novellas that accidentally end up being novels, but I still think of them as novellas, and some short stories, some plays, some music, some poetry, whatever, whatever feels fun and collaborative often. I have a game coming out that I collaborated with my husband on called Negocios Infernales. It's a tabletop RPG, so all of that's very exciting.
Who's your husband?
Carlos Hernandez.
Carlos Hernandez, yeah, of course.
Carlos Alberto Pablo Hernandez.
Yes. You murdered my father, prepare to die. Carlos is amazing.
Yes.
So, tell us about your Readercon experience so far. Like, how's your con been?
I mean, lovely. We rented a minivan and we drove up with Mike and Anita Allen from Mythic Delirium.
We just interviewed Mike. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love them.
Yes.
And so, they're staying on our couch / we call it the monk bed. It's a twin size bed. We jammed it all together and packed Mike with ice packs so he'd be comfortable in our less than stellar air conditioning. And then we had a great time driving up, and my mama came. She was doing a road trip already, and she's like, "I'll come to Boston." So it's lovely. We had breakfast with Amal this morning, and panels and readings and coffee clatch, which I just started doing last year, and I never expect anyone to come. And then it's always this full table of absolute darlings, and it's been really lovely.
What's a coffee clatch for people who don't know?
Well, it's like, I didn't know either, and I was always intimidated by this strange word. Apparently, you just show up, and people sit around a table, and there's coffee available if you want it, and then you look at each other a little awkwardly, and you're like, "Hi, what do you want to talk about?" And then some people they're like, "We want to know, how'd you get started as a writer, or are there resources, or tell us about blah, blah, blah." And so then you start talking, and then more people feel comfortable talking and sharing, and it becomes more like just a conversation around a table, which is much easier like 10 minutes into it than it is at the beginning.
What's your history with this con? Have you come for many years?
Yeah, I don't remember. It was in the aughts that I first came, and Gene Wolfe took me to my first con. Yeah, we both lived in the Chicago area, and I'd known him for a while. He'd been my mentor. We'd been pen pals. And Rosemary was starting to ail, and he was like, "I'd love somebody to help, like at hotels and on the road trip, because they like to drive, people to go into the woman's bathroom with her, and just like another helper." And he's like, "And I'll pay for your registration in your hotel room." And I was like, "I'll absolutely do it. I would have done it for free." So he took me to my first Readercon, and then later, when I got to know more people and peers and colleagues, we'd sometimes do big road trips together. We'd all puppy pile in a single hotel room to save on money. And then in 2014. I met Carlos at a Readercon, and yada yada yada. 2017, we were married, and now it's our 10-year Readercon meet-iversary.
Oh wow!
It's kind of hard to imagine you two not being together, because you're always,
And it's funny because cons came first. I know almost all my SFF friends before Carlos, and a lot of my friends became mutual friends, but he was already friends with Ellen and Delia, so they were like the mutual friends through New York, and the New York people long before the time I ever went to New York.
So your Readercon so far, have you had any highlights of this past
week? I did a reading back-to-back with Carlos. I just love going to people's readings in general. Sometimes I think I would just do a con where I just sat in the reading room and listened to readings back-to-back. But I think that was a really lovely highlight so far.
And it's only the second day.
And it's only the second day, yeah. Tomorrow is a big panel day. Today was more like all the other things you do besides panels.
And what did you read?
I read from a new short story that I wrote the story is called Moons Over Sea, and it will appear in the Tanith Lee tribute anthology called Storyteller.
Yes.
We just interviewed the editor.
Julie!
This is a small world apparently here at Readercon. That's awesome. So if people wanted to find more of your work, where could they find it? And tell us, plug something that you have coming out that maybe our listeners can...
In fact, there's a pre-order at Barnes & Noble happening right now for St. Death's Herald, which is the sequel to St. Death's Daughter, and it's coming out next April. So that's exciting. I'm excited about that. That's what's happening. And then other than a couple short stories and anthologies, like the Storyteller anthology is about to open to submission, so I'm excited to see what fresh new faces we will see in the TOC as well.
Awesome.
But yeah, those are the two main things, I think.
And where can folks find you online?
CSECooney.com or Linktree C.S.E. Cooney or Instagram C.S.E. Cooney. I try to avoid Twitter. Mostly I kind of keep my name there so nobody will take it.
Yeah.
Not that anybody would want to, but I try to only look once every 2 weeks for my mental health.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me.
All right.
I gotta go to dinner now. Bye.
Okay, bye. See you later. All right, we're here with William Alexander. Welcome, William.
Thank you.
Hey, Will.
Great to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you, Will?
Who am I? Okay, I write mostly for middle grade. So on the book covers it'll say 8 to 12-year-olds.
Okay.
The reason I have a career is my first novel it's called Goblin Secrets. It's about a kid who joins a goblin theater troupe. I was a theater kid, and I tried to dump everything that I know and love and understand and don't understand about how theater works into my first book. And the reason I get to have a career is that it won the National Book Award in 2012.
Congratulations.
Thank you. As amazing as that is that Susan Cooper was one of the judges. So I got to tell her about how I read The Dark is Rising to my baby sister as a bedtime story, and it completely failed as a bedtime story because we just read it until dawn. We finished right around the time we were supposed to be getting up and going to school.
Wow.
And it was a very bad school day, and it was all my fault, and I'm not sorry. And so I write for kids. And I've got several science fiction and fantasy books for kids, and I am on extended leave, but for a while there I was teaching at the Vermont College of Fine Arts program in writing for kids and young adults.
Wow, so this is your first Readercon?
Yes, because I was teaching at Vermont College, which they have residencies in July.
Okay. Oh, I see. There's a perpetual conflict.
There was. We moved to Vermont. My wife is from Montreal. We moved to Vermont, and I was about a decade ago, and I was very much looking forward to finally being in proximity to Readercon. We moved from Minneapolis, so I was moving away from several fantastic conventions that I've been going to for years, and I could never go because I was always either teaching in or helping to run this July residency. And so I can finally come now, and so I'm here.
So what is your experience like so far? What do you think?
Admittedly, it's only the second day.
It's only the
second day. It's Friday of a 4-day convention.
It's been great. My one panel was the I don't know why I'm on this panel. And so it was a marvelous conversation with the other panelists were great and hilarious, and we were just trying to figure out what we had in common. And consistently there would be a spooky thing that 3 of the 4 of us had in common.
I think that being a speculative fiction convention, that a lot of us have overlapping Venn diagrams, so to speak.
Did you figure out why you were all in the same panel?
We never did.
Okay.
Oh, so there actually is a reason? They don't just throw several random people? I didn't realize there was a secret reason why you're on the panel.
It was heavily implied that there was a secret reason why we were on the panel, and that we were invited to discover it.
And you never found out?
We invented several possibilities of our own. They may have been lying to us when they suggested that a real one exists, but who knows?
And do you have any other panels or things scheduled for the rest of the weekend? Or
I do. They're on my badge. I'll be in Eurodivergence, discussing alternative storytelling traditions and modes. That's happening very soon, actually. I should try and find something to eat. And there's Reading Like a Reader is tomorrow, which is a sequel to the Reading Like a Writer panel that I'm not on, but I'm sure I'll be in the audience in order to like, having learned how to read like readers, how do we go back to actually enjoy reading without the being hyper aware of the nuts and bolts in the process?
Critical eye.
That's a great panel, because I have that problem. Now that whenever I read a story, I find that I'm critiquing it as I'm reading it, not just enjoying it.
Same with TV shows. I find I'm like, I know where the plot's going.
Yes.
You know, I see all the beats they're hitting here.
Yes, it's hard to be re-enchanted when you know how it works.
So a lot of some of our previous interviewees were telling us that oftentimes it's like people are not necessarily talking about promoting themselves, but just mutual interests at Readercon. Has that been your experience?
Yes. Yes. And that is definitely my preferred mode. I mean, I did do some bragging 2 minutes ago, but I remember...
That's why you're here.
Okay. Yay. I remember when I was still teaching undergraduates, mostly in a comic writing program, they would ask about conventions a fair bit, and ask specifically, is it good for my career to go to a convention? And my favorite answer that I stole and passed on was, yes, it absolutely does, but only if that's not the reason you go.
Oh.
That
is a good answer.
Yeah, it's a very good answer. So where could we find more of your work?
My website is willalex.net, WILLALEX.net. By the time anybody hears this and looks, I hope the current redesign will have finished.
Okay.
I have half a dozen novels for kids. My first grown-up book is theoretically coming out next year from Saga Press.
Awesome. Great publisher.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy your con.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, William Alexander. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Honored.
All right, we're here with John Wiswell. Welcome, John.
Hi.
So,
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who's John Wiswell?
Sure. John Wiswell is a mammal that tends to write about sentient creatures and houses, lonely haunted houses that hope somebody will live in them, the dating habits of flesh-eating monsters, just normal pedestrian fiction.
So everyday
stuff. When I saw you, I suspected you were a mammalian.
Yeah,
that was the first thing that came to me.
Yeah.
So, this isn't your first Readercon. I believe that you've been here before. How many Readercons have you been to?
I have lost count, but I've been coming here since maybe 2012.
Okay.
Well, back before here was here.
Right. At the other hotel in Burlington, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've been coming here since before I had anything published, and it's been one of the most interesting homes of conversations in conventions.
Your career has really taken off in the last year or two. I feel like you've got a lot of success with your short stories and your novel now, so tell us what that's been like for you.
It's been incredible.
Yeah.
I never expected my stories to connect with so many people. You spend a lot of your life thinking that you're not supposed to write many kinds of stories. There are stories you are allowed to write. If you're disabled, don't write about that. Don't let people know. If you're neuroatypical, try to mask that in your fiction. Try to write like other people tell you to write. And when I started to shed more of that and mask less in my fiction, I found so many people were hungry for the same thing that I was hungry for. So I've found writing incredibly freeing, and the more I've published, the more community I've found. I find a home in this that's really wonderful.
Yeah, we talk a lot, David and I talk a lot about finding your people in the genre, and Readercon of all places feels as if it's full of that.
In your view, in your experience, Readercon stands out from other cons in what way? Is it different than any other?
Yeah, I would say this is one of the conventions that has the highest bar for conversation on panels. You will get more interesting conversations in the panels and then in the hallway afterwards. At some point, clotting the hallway is pretty miserably, but clotting with conversations is the worst fate in the world. And there is a warm atmosphere. There's a genuine attempt to help newcomers fit in or meet people, that to flatten the hierarchy. There are a lot of conventions where there are the cool people and the uncool people, and I rather detest that hierarchy myself. Having been on both sides of it, I would rather see it flattened.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Well, I guess it's not funny. It's a real thing here. It's not just something that we talk about. Is that there's no stratification, as I like to call it. It feels as if everybody's really open to talking to somebody, and it's not like, "Hi, here's my book." It's like, "Hi, what cool things have you read?"
Yeah.
You know, or what shows do you like, or what are you working on? You know, stuff like that. Speaking of yes, what are you working on?
What am I working on right now? So, you have caught me at the one point in the year when I'm not working on anything, and it rules because I have been writing for about 51 weeks in a row now. I've turned in my second novel to my publisher, and I've turned in 3 short stories to different magazines, and I'm taking a 2-week vacation. I have already 3 short story ideas burning holes in my pocket, and I know what my next book is, but I'm not allowed to say what it is outside of that it's before the dawn of fantasy.
Okay, awesome. So tell us about stuff that you have out now that our listeners maybe could go find.
Sure. So 3 days ago, a story came out at Tor.com called "I'll Miss Myself" about an app that connects you with. I'm sorry, you were saying.
Go ahead. No, please. Okay. I just said I read it 2 days ago, and I loved it. But go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, it's about an app that allows you to see the feed of every other parallel universe version of yourself. And it's about a young man who's struggling with depression and doesn't find all these parallel universes of himself are necessarily helping until he gets a message that the app may be hiding something from all of them. And so this one is in part a science fiction experiment and in part talking about isolation and depression in the social media age, which is something I feel like we've all been hit by to one degree or another in the last 4 years.
So readers can just go read that right now.
Yes, that is free on Reactor. And then 2 weeks ago, I had a short story called "This Mentor Lives," about a gnarled old wizard who has picked too many chosen ones to mentor and is working himself to death, and they have a little intervention for him because they don't want him to die at the end of the second act.
One of the things I find about your fiction that I think a lot of readers connect with is your sense of compassion for your characters. Is that something that you hear from others as well?
Yes, it was not so fashionable when I started writing. I feel like brutality was more common or misery was more common, and I wanted to write stories in which the emotional development of the characters mattered more than the plot, which is difficult to make work when you're starting. But it is, for me, enormously worth doing because I feel like to some degree it's made me a better person, but also everybody's carrying baggage, and when you write a story that resonates with that baggage, it helps you feel seen. It helps you feel less alone in the world. So I feel like it's one of the best things a story can do for you. So I have been amazed by how many people have connected with one character or another in my plots.
That's so great. And if you said Reactor, they can find your work. Do you have a website or on socials where people could find more of your stuff?
Yes, so I have a link tree that's just linktree/John Wiswell, where you can find me all across the web because I'm on X, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and it's always just John Wiswell. If you look for the name John Wiswell and you see a man with a goatee making a strange face, you've found me. And I have a Substack, johnwiswell.substack.com, if you want my newsletter.
Fantastic, John. Thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Enjoy the rest of your Readercon.
Thank you so much for having me. You two have a fantastic night as well.
Okay.
Thanks. All right, we're here with Rob Cabron. Rob, welcome.
Hey, what's going on, man?
So, Rob, tell us about yourself. Who are you?
I am a writer. I'm a teacher for about 20 plus years and a linguist, and I'm from New York. Well, I live in New York City. I think after 15 years you get tenure, right, to live in New York City.
Right. You're officially New York City. You're officially New Yorker after that.
Yeah, right. I feel like once I get taxed,
right, exactly.
Once I've had to pay more than 5 parking tickets, then
yes, you've got your creds now.
And you navigate by subway. That's how you know.
So. I know you've been to multiple Readercons. When was your first Readercon?
Holy crap. So BSSW was started in 2010. I think my first Readercon was in 2001.
Oh, wow. So you predate us. I think, what was ours, 2003?
Yeah, I think so. What hotel was it?
It was at the one that's north of Boston.
Burlington?
Yes, which, by the way, we're going back to next year.
What?
Yes.
I like this hotel.
I very much like it, too. I don't know what the deal is. Yeah.
This courtyard is the best part of this con.
I think they had one there, too, but I don't recall.
Flipped table. You can't see that at home. But, oh, man.
At the SFX later.
So, how's your Readercon experience this weekend so far?
It's been phenomenal. The more I come to Readercon, the more my writers group, Brooklyn Speculative Fiction Writers Group, the largest in New York City, been really, really active for years. We come with like 20, 30 people, so it's always like we bring our party along with us, and we always have fun here. I'm on 6 different things this Readercon. So I'm going to be on Afrofuturism and Beyond tomorrow. I was talking about subgenres within subgenres earlier today. Another panel on what the hell was about teaching while also writing while also being a teacher or also being a parent, having kids around. And then we also had the Brooklyn Speculative Fiction Writers reading with 90 minutes of fantastic authors.
Yeah, that's amazing. You brought with you a hard copy here.
I did.
So why don't you show that to the audience?
It is
at
in
home.
the back, a hard copy. You can actually do some damage with this.
So can I describe the book to people at home? So the book is called Daydreamer, and it is a man and a boy on a rooftop. Looks like New York City, somewhere possibly.
It is. I'm taking a fantastical bend to it. So it's like the city, kind of like the forest is the forest.
Yeah.
It's just the city.
And there's shadows on the ground. It's a silhouette of a dragon, and they're like claws coming. Very cool cover. Yeah. Daydreamer by Rob Cameron.
Amazing. What's the premise of the novel?
Yeah.
So the premise is, let me do my elevator pitch. I had to figure out. Sure. So what if your mother is killing it? She's fantastic at her job. She's working 2 jobs, and she's going to school, and she expects that of you. And you're 11 years old. But what if you're also dyslexic, and you're realizing now that you just can't handle the pressure, and no one understands what that pressure is? But also, what if your main father figure is a dragon, or claims to be a dragon, lives in the building, filling your head with stories? Then these stories really kind of build your imagination of what is going on when no one else is looking. When you dream with the dragon's dreams, right? So this is his world until 2 very dangerous monsters, and they look like people, but they really in fact are not.
Okay.
Move into their building, and he becomes friends with the son of the son that moved in. Like one of the monsters is son. One of the monsters. The monster has a son, and he becomes best friends with him.
And this is a young adult or middle grade?
This is middle grade.
Middle grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's upper middle grade. So ages 10, 14 and plus. But when I wrote it just for me.
Yeah.
There was a scene that I had in my head. I just had to get out. Dragons are a big deal for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote it because of whatever I wanted to put on the page. And then my editor, Lisa Abrams, my agent, Barry Goldblatt, says this is middle grade. Mm-hmm. And so it was tailored and edited specifically for middle grade. Okay. And I feel like this is the novel that taught me how to write. I absolutely love it.
And it's out now?
It comes out August 6th.
August 6th, so you can pre-order it?
You can pre-order it, please. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's amazing. So in your 20 plus years attending Readercon, is there any experience you've had or anything that stands out in your mind?
I'll tell you about my first Readercon experience. It was me, Bradley Albert Parks, Sonia who's around here somewhere.
Taffy? Sonia Taffy?
No, I always forget people's last names. That's my brain. We came here together for the first time. I had no idea we were baby authors, and we tried to go to the meet the pros panel. We got scared out of our effing mind. We all ended up at the bar. And like, what is this? We drove all the way out here from Brooklyn to be here and do something. So we lubricated, and we
as one does.
Did you meet the pros there?
It wasn't the floor. We lubricated too much. But there was they have the wax paper where you labels with the people's quotes. We took an oath right there. I still have the picture somewhere that we were going to go back in there, be brave, and meet people, and then we will learn how to write stories that matter in speculative fiction, fantasy settings, and be those pros. And that's
amazing.
So for people who don't know, Meet the Pros is an event at Readercon where basically, they changed the format, but originally it was like a way for people it was their first time at Readercon who could meet the professionals in a structured way. So they would give you a wax paper thing of stickers of quotes. The pros had quotes from their own work, and the idea was you would go up to them and ask for a sticker, and then you would get a copy of the sticker, and then that would be like a way you could start a conversation with the pros.
It was a huge cocktail party type of format.
Yeah,
it's changed up, right?
It's changed. Now it's sort of like writer speed dating.
Yeah, which I feel like I like a bit more.
It is a little bit
because
better.
It's not just you and one other person trying to have a conversation. This person you don't know.
So now you're doing that tonight, right?
Yeah.
So you've come a long way, right? So you started from being intimidated and overwhelmed, and now you're one of the writers. You're one of the pros.
I mean, it helps because I know people like you, and I know people like David, and I come with people that are also on the same journey. Because if it was just me that first time, I never would have had the courage to go back in there after just feeling completely humiliated, like I can't open my mouth and say anything that isn't shit. Can I say that?
You could say whatever you want.
Too late. It's
gone. It's out in the world.
Yeah.
So, Rob, if people want to find your work, more of your work, where can they go?
Sure, they can go to rob-cameron.com.
Awesome. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Enjoy the rest of your con.
Thank you
Have
guys.
a great con. And I'll see you at the Meet the Pros.
I wonder if you'll be at my table.
Yeah, probably at some point. All right, we're here with Sophia Babai. Welcome, Sophia.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
So who are you? Who's Sophia?
I am an author. I'm a climate activist. I'm a somatic therapist working primarily with refugees. And this year I'm a Readercon panelist for the first time, which is fun.
Awesome. And is this your first Readercon?
This is my second Readercon. I came last year having really no idea what it was. Just a friend of mine said, hey, there's this sci-fi fantasy book con happening. It sounds fun. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can afford that. Why not? And then it wound up being an amazing, amazing experience.
That was going to be my next question. Like, what is your experience here? Overwhelmingly, everyone who's sat down with us has said the same thing. It's an extremely positive experience. Is there a particular thing about Readercon that you like or that makes it positive for you?
So I have mostly, I write on the literary fantasy crossovers, so I've mostly been to more literary conventions, which tend to have, very interesting programming, but it's a little stiff, it's a little professional, there's a strong vibe of everyone's kind of trying to prove themselves. And when I'm at Readercon, it just feels like a bunch of nerds hanging out. And even if they're super impressive nerds, that's not the point. The point is that they're nerds, and that's really fun for me.
It's funny that like, because we asked this question of everybody, and everybody has the same response, and it's like people listening at home or wherever, they're probably like, why does everyone have the same answer?
Are they hearing each other speak before?
No, they're not. They're not. They're like we grab people from different groups and people like Sophia and I and David are meeting for the first time. So like we've never met. And it's the same thing. It's like we talk about finding your people.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And I definitely, it's funny because last year I met a few folk and several of us exchanged like super long emails, and like we live all over like different parts of the U.S., different parts of North America. One of my really good friends who I met here lives in Switzerland, but we stayed in touch with these like giant conversations about just kind of everything. And I feel like that's not, usually if I meet someone in a vaguely professional context, sure, we'll talk, but it won't be these really deep, in-depth conversations about religion and culture and the world, but also like silly conversations about what TV we like. And I just love having that sort of breadth and depth.
So tell us a little bit about your work. What types of things do you do?
So writing wise, it's funny saying I'm currently on submission with this, because who knows what will be true at the point where this thing comes out. I'm currently on submission with a novel that, again, is like right between literary and fantasy. I don't know what it's going to be published as, but it's about jinn and ghosts and the ways that colonialism kind of turns us against ourselves and each other. And while it's on sub, my agent said, oh, you should try writing short stories. And I was just like, I have never written anything shorter. Well, not never, but like not since college have I written anything shorter than 100,000 words.
That's a short story, right?
That's a short story, right? But yeah, I've been writing some shorter pieces, and a lot of my background is actually as a ghostwriter, so it's funny because I've got I have written books that are New York Times bestsellers, but I've written very few things with my real name on it.
Okay.
And
that's interesting. Can you tell us those books?
I can't. It's NDA to hell and back.
Understood.
They're mostly nonfiction. They're mostly about mental health and climate stuff, since that's what I do more professionally.
And has there been a particular highlight of Readercon so far that you want to talk about?
Yes, so I was on the Stories We Tell About Israel and Palestine panel with Amal El-Mutar, Karen Meisner, Benjamin Rosenbaum, and, gonna get his name wrong, Noah Beit Dahran.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was a fairly late addition. The panel itself was... There was a lot that went into creating the panel and some pretty high emotional stakes. And I was really nervous going in, especially because you had Noah, who was the program chair, and then you had 3 people who've known each other for 16 years, and you've got me. And it's this Israel-Palestine panel. We have 1 Israeli and 0 Palestinians, and I'm the only Muslim. And I was just like, how is this going to go? And I was really, really, really pleased with how it went, and with like the feedback that we got, and the way that we were able to show a range of perspectives that still honor the basic humanity of both Israelis and Palestinians, because that's so rare right now.
I found it really refreshing as a Jewish American, just refreshing to have that kind of space for conversation, because everybody on both sides is very reactionary about it, and it was nice to see, and I really appreciate your addition to that, to have your voice and your position on it, because that I think is super great.
And it's also quintessential Readercon to focus on hot button political issues, social issues. It's not uncommon to see that at this particular con.
Yeah.
And any other panels or events for the rest of the weekend that you're looking forward to?
So I really front-loaded it. I've done 4 panels already, and it's Friday. I've got 1 panel left, which is the works of Modao Zushi at 9 p.m., which is, I'm so excited for this one, because a lot of the others have been very, like, politics and colonialism and this, that, and this is just like, let's talk about these novels from China that we really like. And then beyond that, I'm mostly excited for opportunities to meet people. I'm really excited for karaoke on Saturday.
Oh, right, that's right.
And certainly there's some really interesting panels as well, but as much as I do like the programming here, I mostly come here to just hang out with cool people. So. Yeah.
So, is there anything that you'd like to plug or mention about your own work?
Not really. I have things that are coming up, but I don't think I can tell you yet.
Okay.
I wish the answer was
Someone
yes.
else's work, maybe?
Someone else's work. So hopefully everyone here has heard of him already, because he's winning a bunch of awards. But I really love the work of Vajra Chandrasekhara. The Saint of Bright Doors is one of the best books that I have ever read.
Wow.
And Riksfall,
High praise.
I can barely call it a book, because it's just doing so many weird things with structure and genre and all of that, but it is an experience, and it's incredible. It's like looking through a kaleidoscope, and you don't necessarily know what's happening, but it's spectacular.
Awesome.
Try that. Sophia, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
so
Sophia.
much.
I'm so glad to get to talk to you. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your time.
Thank you so much.
All right, so that was our Readercon
special edition of the Nerd
speed
Pod
interviews.
the Nerd Podcast.
That was really fun. What did you think?
It was amazing. It was just, it's so typical of this con to have so many articulate speakers come on and tell us about themselves. And I love the ending with Sophia mentioning the fact that she just likes at the end of the day, she just likes talking to other nerds.
Yeah,
it fits our
podcast, because that's really like, I said this before, but David and I just love to like have a beer and just talk about stuff, and this is like, now we can do it and do it with other people and share it, and it's really great.
Yep.
So this is only the second day of Readercon. We're closing out here at 7 p.m. on the porch, and already having an amazing time, and still 2.5 more days to go, or
That's
2 more
right.
days to go. So
that's right.
Yeah.
I'm glad we were able to share a little bit of this with you. I think it gives you a sense of what conventions are about and what Readercon in specific is about.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's it for our live at Readercon episode.
We should have like a sign-off thing, like nerds out or something. Man.
Should we
We need to work on that.
Say 3, 2, 1, nerds.
Yes.
3, 2. 1. You're not saying it.
Nerds. Are we going to say what do nerds assemble? Nerds
unite? I don't know. Let's just say nerds.
Nerds. Good night, nerds.
Good night, nerds. I like that.
Okay.
All right. 3, 2. All right.
Good night.
3,
2, 1. Good night, nerds.
You have been listening to the Nerd Count Podcast. That's our show. But if you want more shows, check us out at nerdcountpodcast.com or your favorite podcasting site. See you next time.
Get those nerds!